I'm here to talk to you about safe havens. What is a safe haven? It's effectively a place where you can keep frogs to prevent them going extinct. Nice and easy. So the ultimate safe haven is obviously a captive breeding population. That's a place where we can keep them in captivity, breed them, and prevent them going imminently extinct from these threats that people like Archer are identifying. The mountain chicken is a massive frog, one of the world's largest. It's up to 1 kilo in weight, 20 centimetres from just in body length, that's without its legs, huge animal. And Andrew was talking about culturally important animals. The mountain chicken is very culturally important on the 2 islands in which it's found. It's the national dish on Dominica, it's on the national crest. It used to be the national dish, so it's not. It's on the national crest, national bank logo. Very important animals. And they were previously hunted, as you might be able to tell from their names. So I'm going to transport you now to the Eastern Caribbean. This is Montserrat, one of the islands on which it occurred. In fact, there were probably tens of thousands of mountain chickens on this island. That is until 2009, when, as part of one of the fastest declines of any vertebrate ever recorded, which is quite a statement, in fact, on this island within 18 months, those animals were almost all lost. In fact, now there are only 2 individuals that we know of. The culprit is chytridiomycosis. You don't have to have a go at saying it, it's quite complicated. It's a fungal disease of amphibians that's causing declines globally. In fact, it infects over 700 species worldwide. It contributes to the threatened status of over 400 species and has directly driven the decline and extinction, or extinction, of over 200 species. So everything we learn about chytridiomycosis and how to mitigate it for the mountain chicken is directly applicable to 200 species of frog. Luckily for the mountain chicken, when this decline was happening, Durrell, alongside ZSL and Chester, set up the Mountain Chicken Recovery Programme with the aim of preventing the extinction of this animal. And so they went on to create the safe haven, this captive breeding safety net population at ZSL, Chester and Durrell. But we can't keep them in captivity forever. That's not a sustainable way to save a species. We need to get them back into the wild. And this is where some of my PhD research starts to come in. This is a reintroduced mountain chicken. It's never seen a Montserrat tarantula before, but as soon as it saw it, it ate it. That's great, because we don't know that they can adapt to the wild. It's been bred in captivity, never seen one. It's great. Alongside this kind of natural feeding behaviour, we also see natural behaviour including males making breeding calls, females making foam nests in burrows, which is part of their natural breeding behaviour, so they can adapt to the wild. The problem is, of course, the disease still exists in the wild. And so these reintroductions that we carried out with the other organisations in the Mountain Chicken Research Programme or Recovery Programme focused on the impact of that disease. In fact, mainly on the impact of seasonality on those reintroductions. What I haven't said about the fungus is it has a very narrow optimal temperature range and is waterborne, requires water. And so, obviously, seasonality is likely to play a role. In fact, we see a very strong relationship. In the dry, cool season, when the temperature is very much within the range that the fungus likes, frogs became infected within 1-2 weeks. There were fatal cases of chytridiomycosis, so this disease is quite prevalent. There were deaths. It's not very encouraging. Then we move to the warm, wet season. The warm, wet season, the temperatures regularly exceed this kind of optimal temperature range for the fungus. So the fungus stops growing at 28 degrees and dies above 30. So great, we've reintroduced them then. That's encouraging. Let's see what happens. In fact, we see no infections for over 3 months. No signs of chytridiomycosis during any of the time in the release, and no deaths. Unfortunately, then the Caribbean suffers one of the worst droughts it's seen, and the frogs go missing, probably burrow underground, maybe die. So what do we do next? It's quite a problem. Well, alongside the introductions, we carried out this parallel study into reservoir species. So looking at where the disease exists in other species. This is a tree frog. It becomes infected, but doesn't develop disease and doesn't die. So it's basically a perfect vector for the disease to the mountain chicken. We find exactly the same pattern. During the cool, dry season, when the temperature's within the range of the fungus, these frogs, up to 30% of them are infected. However, during the warm, wet season, these frogs are almost never infected. Great, this pattern's great, we can definitely exploit this. But how? This is where we take what Durrell's good at, applying what we know in captivity to the wild, to animals in the wild. So, the next kind of the plan, this is intensive care unit. The idea is to reintroduce a number of animals into an enclosure on Montserrat and apply intensive management options on them. Obviously, the obvious one to do is to try and manipulate the environment so that it's very like the warm season all year round. That would be removing foliage, etc. During the reintroductions, we learned another fact. Mountain chickens like water, and that wasn't what we learned. They become, infected, often very close to the water sources. That's because, one, the fungus is waterborne, so it's likely that the fungus lives in those water when it gets contaminated. And secondly, they spend a lot of time together at water sources, the perfect place to contact each other and get infected. How do you deal with that? Well, in captivity, one of the options for treating mountain chickens frogs in general, is heat treatment. You heat the frogs beyond that temperature limit that the fungus is happy to live at. And the frogs become clear. They lose infection. So the idea is to apply that in the wild. We provide artificial water sources in this enclosure on Montserrat and heat them to above the temperature that the fungus is happy, but still within the range that the mountain chicken is. That's good for two reasons. One, the fungus can't survive in the water at that temperature, so they're not going to get infected by using that water. Two, they may self-treat. If they go and sit in the water, which we know they do when they become infected, they might in fact lose infection. So that's great. This is kind of a pioneering bit of research. No one's doing this. It's a world first in this intensive care unit. It's not just for the mountain chicken. As I said, 200 species are declining or have gone extinct because of this disease. And this research is applicable to a huge number of them. The mountain chicken is quite relatively easy to study, at least. Obviously, it's very large. We know quite a lot about it, and people like it in the field. But it's a huge undertaking. This needs people on the ground for years. We need to build an enclosure. We need to carry out the research. But it's necessary. If we don't do this now, more species are going extinct, including the mountain chicken. We can't keep them in captivity forever. Thank you very much.